So we are going to be doing a room today, and rooms are a little bit trickier than doing a road, but that's okay, we can do it. So we're going to do this horizontally, and you're going to start off by doing a rectangle. That rectangle should measure 3 inches by 4.5. So it's just a simple pencil rectangle that's kind of floating in the middle of that frame that you have there. Once you have the rectangle, you're going to be placing a vanishing point. That vanishing point should go towards the middle of your rectangle, so in the middle area of that rectangle that you just drew. Again, the measurements for that rectangle are 3 by 4.5. And then you're going to line up the corner of the rectangle with that vanishing point, and you do that to each corner. So it looks like this, and then you should have like an X inside. You're going to be erasing the X that's within the rectangle. So now you should see a room that has a back wall, 2 side walls, a top, and a floor. So now what we need to do is we're going to go to the top because there's a little decorative element at the top. And you're going to be copying that from the reference photo just for funsies. And that's kind of a trapezoid shape. So now we're going to be putting in a rectangle, and the rectangle placement does need to be just a tiny bit above the back wall there, but then a lot below it too. The measurements for that are 1 inch by 2.5 inches. So it looks like that. That's going to be the back of the bed. Here's a close-up. And you're going to be connecting the corners of the rectangle, just the top 2 corners, to the vanishing point and closing it off. So this should be very familiar. It's essentially what you were doing when you were doing the floating blocks. And then I just put a headboard. That headboard is not in perspective, so it is just a straight up rectangle. But there are some pillows that are decorating that bed. Actually, a lot of pillows. So I'm going to be drawing those to get the suggestion that this is a bed and not just a block. And then there's going to be some more things we can do to help make this look like a bed. There were fun stripes on there, I couldn't resist. So you don't have to copy the image, the reference picture, to a T. You could change some things up. So that means that you don't necessarily need to draw every stripe on there. The bedspread, the comforter, is kind of flaring out beyond the bed. So it's kind of poofy, so I'm extending that out. And there's also a bench at the base of the bed. So that's what I'm doing there. A very skinny rectangle that goes a little bit beyond the bed frame itself on either side. And then I'm connecting the top of that bench to the vanishing point. And that's how you get the top plane of the bench, like that. You may have noticed I didn't draw my lines all the way back to the vanishing point. That's because I'm doing that as a shortcut. I know that the bench isn't going back infinitely to that point, so I just draw them as long as I think I'll need to go. And then there's a little throw blanket that's wrapped around that bench that's tossed on there. So you can have fun too with the details, and you can modify it. You could also add more than what you see in the reference. Now this bed is sitting on top of a rug, so I am putting the rug in too. The rug is also going to the vanishing point, so you can see I'm lining up my ruler, my straight edge, with the vanishing point to get the sides. And there's some trim there too, so I'm going to get that as well. So you can see I'm making lots of lines, but they're all angling back towards that vanishing point. So you can look at a reference picture and find the vanishing point. All you have to do is look at where those lines are angling back to. So here's my version of the tassels. It's very simplified, but that's okay. This is an exercise. It's not like a finished product. Notice that the tassels are wider as they approach the viewer. As they move away, they should get tighter together, so narrower. Now there is a pillow that is positioned on top of the bench, and that pillow is closer to the viewer, and therefore it should be a little bit bigger than the pillows that are resting on the backboard of the bed there. So that pillow is a little bit larger. There is a little pot in the background. That pot does not necessarily need to go back to a vanishing point. You can draw the leaves. I think it adds an element of natural objects, so an organic shape in an otherwise very geometric room. As with most master bedrooms, there are going to be 2 nightstands. So I'm going to put those in too. I'm starting off with a horizontal line and getting kind of a rectangular shape to both. So they're kind of like blocks, just like what we did before. And the sides of each are going back to that vanishing point. So the top part connects up, and I don't need to go very far. I just need to get a shallow little top. It doesn't need to be a huge wide top to those nightstands. And then I'm drawing in, freehand drawing the legs in. You just want to make sure that the legs aren't floating, that they're actually touching the floor. And there's a cute little drawer in there that you can get into. The back wall has a couple of decorative posters or artwork, so we're going to go ahead and put those in too. Although you don't have to make them look exactly like this. You can put your own artwork back there if you wanted to. It could be like what you'd want your bedroom to look like or what your bedroom does look like. So feel free to change the artwork. It doesn't have to be 2, it could be 3, or it could be different sizes. Now on that right hand wall, we're going to be putting in a window because I want you to have that skill. So I started off with a vertical line, and then you're attaching the top of that vertical line to the vanishing point, and then you're going to go from the bottom of that vertical line to the vanishing point too. So once you have both of those lines angling back, you close off the shape with another vertical line. So that's parallel to that first line that you drew. And you can see it's starting out wide as it's close to the viewer, and as that window moves away, it gets narrower. That is pretty true to life, how we perceive things as humans. That's how our optics work. We are going to be putting on a frame on this. So the same idea, we're going to be dividing this up into window panes, and you're going to find the middle, but the middle should be a little bit wider to the right and a tiny bit narrower to the left due to perspective. And then I'm going to divide this up into panes. I'm choosing to do thirds, so I'm going to divide into thirds here. Those lines do need to attach to the vanishing point, so you need to line them up. And you're noticing that I'm not drawing it all the way to the vanishing point, and that is so I can avoid having to erase all the lines later. I am going to beef this up and make it more of a heftier frame for this window. Okay, so that's the heftier frame happening. I'll probably go back in and do a little bit of shading on there, but I want to show you some other things too. So there are a couple lines up at the top that I got there to articulate the roof. I'm also putting another window in, or you could look at that as a poster or a mirror, and I just did the same thing I did to the right side with the window, and I just put it on the left hand side too. And now I'm divvying up that space, and I'm getting in those little lines there, the kind of the stripe pattern. And I measured those out, so I'm double checking my measurements because I forgot to. Oops, but I'm going to put them in. So now there's a little bit of a decorative element there too. I am going to go to the floor and get in a floor pattern. So I'm going to add some pattern to the carpet. And I'm doing this but for a floor, like for a rug, but it could work for wooden planks too. You have to pivot off of that point. You see how I'm pivoting off of the ruler? I'm putting my pencil point there and turning it. You have to gauge the spacing in between each line to make sure it's working right. But you should see that it's correct if it's fanning out. You can see how I'm moving that like the hands of a clock. So it's creating this kind of pattern, and that's helping the idea of depth. And then you can add a little bit of detail. You can add some shading and some other things and have a little bit of fun with it too. I put a table lamp there, so there's like a little lamp. The deal is extra credit. If you shade or put in elaborate detail, I will give you some additional points and tack that onto your grade.